when memorizing Quran?
Is there any part in the Quran?
Is there, like, we take President, like...
Yeah.
Which
Alhamdulillah, wa salatu salam ala rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. All praise be to Allah. We praise Him and we seek His aid. We ask refuge in Allah from the evils of ourselves and the evils of our actions. Whomsoever Allah guide, none can lead astray, and whomsoever went astray, none can guide. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His slave and messenger. Now, related to this question, that we need to understand that the Quran, all of it is a speech of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the Quran, there are things in the Quran which should be memorized. For example, the Fatiha, the opening, the first chapter of the Quran, is the most important chapter. The most important chapter in the Quran is Fatiha. So it is a duty upon every Muslim, man and woman, and even a child to try to memorize the Quran as soon as they are able to memorize, because it is essential to do all active worship, for especially the Fatiha, the other active worship, like for example the Salah. Yeah. We cannot do the Salah without Fatiha. So the most important part of the Quran should be memorized is the Fatiha. The other thing depends. Some people, they said, some scholars, they said the ayat which is the Prophet ﷺ, he used to regularly recite, for example, the morning and the evening. Yeah. For example, ayat al-Kursi, for example, the three quls, qul huwallahu, qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq, qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas. These ones, as well as they could be as well as important, but they are not as important as the Fatiha. And the other Quran, all of it is a speech of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yeah.
So, Sheikh, I heard it somewhere, I can't remember. Is there a specific verse which says that this is like equivalent to the whole Quran? Like if you is it the Fatiha or was it?
No, the Fatiha Sab'ul Mathani wal Quran al-Azim. This is the Fatiha itself. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allah Azza wa Jalla has revealed upon me, which is Allah specialized this ummah, that the Prophet ﷺ was revealed to him, or Allah Azza wa Jalla has favored this ummah upon the other nations, that Allah Azza wa Jalla has revealed the Fatiha to them. So the Prophet ﷺ was extremely happy when Allah Azza wa Jalla has revealed the Fatiha to him. So, and this is the great Quran that Allah has sent it down to him. Now, equivalent to the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that there is, in terms of reward, the one who recited Qul huwallahu ahad, for example, 3 times, it is not just like equal, he recited the whole Quran.
Yeah, okay.
And the meaning of that Qul huwallahu ahad ta'dulu thuluth al-Quran, which means it is equal to the third of the Quran. Because the scholars of Islam, they said that the Quran is either about Tawheed, either about oneness Allah Azza wa Jal, or about the stories, the people before us and the people after us and the day of resurrection and so on and so forth. Or is about ruling, do and not to do.
Okay.
And Qul huwallahu ahad is a pure Tawheed. That's why it is equivalent to the third of the Quran. Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, Sheikh, I want to ask you one question. If we're reciting, we're doing the Fatiha, is it innovation to, you should do it out loud, or even if you don't do it out loud, on the third rak'ah after Fatiha, can you recite another verse of the Quran, or is it no?
Okay, Jazakallah, that's a good question. Actually, there is no restrictions. We have some scholars, they said there is no but there is no restriction. You are entitled to recite other than Fatiha in the third and the fourth rak'ah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you are entitled to do it, because there is nothing to restrict it. And actually, but you need as well to know, depends how the people, and we generally, for example, if the people in the community, you need to educate them about it, that there is no restriction, there is nothing mentioned in the Sunnah that the Prophet ﷺ, he was never reciting that.
Yeah.
But the priority to recite Fatiha, but as well, if someone added to the Fatiha in the third and the fourth rak'ah, it is permissible for them to do, and they will be rewarded, of course, for doing so.
So, Sheikh, you said if you say Qul huwallahu ahad 3 times, so like if you say it's equivalent to power.
Yeah.
So what if somebody, when he's doing Isha prayer, and after the first rak'ah Fatiha, he does Qul huwallahu ahad, can he do it on the third, fourth, all the 4 rak'ahs? We
have the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, he was, people complain about an imam, that he was leading the salah with the people. There is 2 narrations. One narration that says he was reading after Fatiha, he was reading Qul huwallahu Surah Al-Ikhlas and any other surah after it, which means he will start with Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu subhanahu. Then he will recite something else, and the next rak'ah he will do the same.
Okay,
and in some narration he was doing the first surah, he was doing the Fatiha and surah, and then he will end with Qul huwallahu ahad in each rak'ah.
Okay.
So he came, he was brought to the Prophet ﷺ, and then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, why did you do that? He said, I found the attribute of Ar-Rahman in it, in the surah. So that's why I love it. So the Prophet ﷺ, he approved his action by doing so. So he approved ﷺ his action. And that's why the Prophet, he praised him for doing so. So it is something as well. It is sunnah, I will say forgotten sunnah, abandoned sunnah, that the people, they should do it from time to time, actually, to recite after every rak'ah, to recite Qul Huwallahu Ahad and another surah after it.
So Surah Fatiha,
Qul Huwallahu Ahad and another surah.
So you can go to somewhere else?
Somewhere else. Another surah.
That's interesting. So is that just specifically for Qul Huwallahu Ahad, or can it be for example, let's say, Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas?
No. That's specifically for Qul Huwallahu Ahad. And there is another narration we'll find in Sunan Abi Dawud, that the Prophet ﷺ in Salat al-Fajr, he prayed in the first rak'ah Fatiha and Surah al-Zalzala. The second rak'ah he recited Fatiha and Surah al-Zalzala. So he did it, alayhi salatu wasalam. So as well, this is another abandoned sunnah, that the people, they don't do it, to recite in some time, not all the time, in Fajr Salah, or the Salah which is two, for example, if you are a traveler, or you're reading Isha, for example, so and the Salah which is two, to recite Fatiha and Surah al-Zalzala in the 2 rak'ah. These are the only places in the Quran where we could repeat in the same Salah, generally.
Okay. So we've got more questions. Brothers and sisters, do call in, inshallah. The telephone number is 0203 637 6857. Yes. So make sure you call in, inshallah, and get your questions in. The next question, quickly relating to that before we move on, is Bismillah part of the Fatiha?
Bismillah is part of the Fatiha. It is a verse in the Fatiha. So the one who didn't recite Bismillah, his Fatiha is invalid. So his rak'ah is invalid. So his Salah is invalid. So the Bismillah is part of the Fatiha. So it is one of the 7 ayat, one of the 7 verses in the Fatiha, first of all. Now, but the Prophet ﷺ, he alayhi salatu wasalam, he was, from his sunnah was, regarding Bismillah ar-Rahman, he was to recite it, not to recite it loudly, he will say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, not in loud voice, and then he will start, the louder one, he will start from Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen all the way to the end. So it is part of the Fatiha, and it is crucial for each one who will, who's reading Fatiha, he has to read Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Otherwise his Fatiha is not valid.
So there's no different opinion on this?
There are some slightly different opinions, but generally we go with the Qurra. The Qurra, they agree that it is part of the Fatiha. The people who recited, the one who transferred the Quran, the one who narrated the Quran, they all agree it is part of the Fatiha. It is there.
So, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim.
Yes.
What about that?
Where we recite it? Where we say it?
Let's say any.
Yeah, okay, Jazakallah khair. Allah said in the Quran, whenever we recite the Quran, Allah commanded us, فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Commanded the Prophet ﷺ, we have to make أعوذ بالله من الشيطان. We have to say it in every time. Now, the problem is, or not the problem, I mean, the question is, where we say it? Shall we say it in the first rak'ah or in the rak'ah? It is, the scholars of Islam, they said, some of them, they said it's obligation to say it in the first rak'ah, at least. And the second rak'ah, they said it is sunnah. And some scholars, they said no, it is obligation. Whenever you want to read the Quran, then you will do it. So I will say it is important to say it in the first rak'ah. And in the other rak'ah, I mean, it is obligation to say it in the first rak'ah. But in the second rak'ah, it is not as obligation as the other one.
Like one is sufficient.
I will say you need to do it every time, because in order to be on the safe side, that's a mistake.
Okay, so it's best you're saying to do it every time.
Yeah, every time. Whenever you want to read Fatiha, so A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillah ar-Rahman, and then you continue.
And the Bismillah, does that go with every other besides Fatiha? Do you have to say?
No. Bismillah, it is sunnah to recite it in every surah except Surah At-Tawbah, the beginning of Surah At-Tawbah.
Okay.
It is sunnah to say it. It is not wajib to say it as Fatiha. Why Fatiha? Because it's part of it. And in another surah in the Quran as well, it is another verse in the Quran that إِنَّهُ سُلَيْمَانُ وَإِنَّهُ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. So so when Sulaiman alayhi salam, he sent the letter to the queen, he said it is from Sulaiman and it is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So he said that alayhi salam. So from that, these are the two places of the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in the Quran and as part of the Quran. In the other ones, in the other surah, the beginning of each surah, it is sunnah to say it, but it's not wajib to say it. I mean, it's recommended to say it. But in the middle of the surah, there is no narration to say. For example, I want to start from the middle of Surah Al-Baqarah. Yeah. You don't need to say Bismillah ar-Rahman. You need only just to say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim and you start the ayah and that's it.
Okay. Sheikh, next question. Long hair. Can somebody leave their hair long?
Okay. That's a question. Actually, we have some brothers. I see them that they keep their hair long. Yeah. We need to understand what the scholars have said about it. Is it sunnah and is it from the action of the Prophet ﷺ? True, the Prophet ﷺ, his sunnah is one of the, what you call it, from one of his action, which is a habit of his time. People, they used to have long hair generally. And he, alayhi salatu wasalam, he was never cutting his hair except in Hajj or Umrah or in Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, alayhi salatu wasalam. Otherwise, he was most of the time he had a hair. Now, but when you have a long hair, you need to, if you want to follow the sunnah according to it, it's not the way that the brothers are doing it nowadays. If you want to have the sunnah, you should cover it. The Prophet ﷺ,
he covered it.
He covered it. He was never like seen like open in public, like walking, except in Hajj or Umrah. That's the only time where you need to uncover your head.
Yeah, but Sheikh, can we say that maybe it was hot in the desert and they always had to keep on? He didn't have no reason to take it off. So can we use that as an evidence to say he closed it because, do you get what I'm trying to say?
I know what you want to say, but again, how we deal with it, we deal from the general action of the Prophet ﷺ is not like as important as what he says, what he told us to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Now later on, the scholars, they said, when the people at the time of the beginning of in the history, when the people start hiring, for example, people to be in army or in the police or something like that during the Umayyad time and the Abbasi time, there used to be those ones who were taking the what do you call it, the taxes from the people, the unlawful taxes from the people. They used to have long hair, yeah, and they used to be known with that. So from that the scholars of Islam, they said it was at the time of the Prophet, it could be a sunnah, but now it is a sunnah to cut it, not to be attributed to these oppressors. Yeah. So that's why having a long hair, it is a habit of the people. You need to check who are the people who have the long hair in our time. So nowadays in our time, it's not something which is Muslim deeds generally. It's not something which is general Muslim, they have it. So if you want to, let's say if someone wanted to practice the action of the Prophet ﷺ, we say then you have to hide it. For example, you need to have something which covers it all. Now if you can't do it, then you cut it off. You cut it off and just be normal, because if you uncover it, then you will be attributed either to a woman, which is nowadays, or you will be attributed to, generally it is not a Muslim habit of nowadays time. So you need as well, anyone who wanted to have anything which he wanted to take it as in the Sunnah or the action of the Prophet ﷺ, you need to check the people of his time, what they are doing. If the people of his time, their habits is changed now, and if you want for example the turban, let's give the example, the turban. The turban, it was the habit of the Arabs generally, yeah? And it was the habit of the Prophet, he was having a turban, isn't it? Now later on in India, now it became a habit not just only to the Muslims, it became even to non-Muslims. And now certain types of turban now could be attributed to certain faiths. Now in that case, can a Muslim apply that? We'll say to him, no, even the turban originally was habit of the Prophet ﷺ, and even though it was habit of the Muslims at that time, but since the situation changed, now as well the ruling will change with it. So having the turban in certain ways could be not allowed, because you're going to be attributed to certain faith, which is not from Islam. So similarly the hair, if it's a habit of people which is not Muslims, then in that case it will be not permissible to the brothers to have it.
But Sheikh, okay, but nowadays there's fashion, people put their trousers above the ankle, long beard. Like if you look at it, the figure is following the Sunnah. So in this case, what do we do? Because then we'll figure, okay, they're doing
the long beard is not is something from the Sunnah. Having two trousers above the ankle, it is from the Sunnah, and we will find the people who believe that it is not permissible to have it below the ankles. That it is something which is, we encourage them, if they believe it is the truth. So they have to follow what they believe in. So if they believe this is the truth, this is the haqq, and they believe that the Prophet ﷺ, because we have a few hadith about above the ankles, even though I will say, in my opinion, that it is better to have it, but not like as obligation. As I have some details about it, but this is not the time.
What's your take on it? Like, we'll just quickly.
Okay, my ruling of it, that the one which is below the ankle, if it's out of pride, then in that case that the person will be sinful for doing so. If it's not for pride, if it's something which is not as a pride, but in that case, the person who will be not sinful as the one with the pride.
Isn't there a hadith that differentiates? Yes, there's one that talks about pride, but isn't there one specifically talks about that you have to take it, and it's not enough to do with the pride?
Yes. That hadith is related to others, because we find as well, we find few actions of the Sahabah, few actions of the Prophet ﷺ, and other Sahabah who had it at the time of the Prophet ﷺ.
Had what?
They had their clothes below their ankles.
They had it below.
Yeah, they had below their ankles, and then because of that the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't blame them in a way or another. And not only that, he will find that the Prophet ﷺ, he will say that, for example, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, I hold it, and he said you are not. He was skinny man. He said to him, you are not like the one. But the thing is here, if it's something which is like clear cut haram, then the Prophet ﷺ will bring it to the attention of the people. By the way, this is haram, you shouldn't do it, even though you don't do it out of pride, if that's the case. So because of that, the safest way, if someone will believe is above the ankle, I have no issues with it, because many great scholars, they are upon that, and as well we have other scholars who say that it is not like a it is not basically it's not haram if it's not out of pride.
Okay, so can we say it's like disliked?
Yeah, the minimum is to say disliked, especially if here when you walk, especially the one which is, we're not talking about below the ankle. There are something which is extremely below the ankles, which goes to the floor, which is literally you walk and then
the floor.
Yeah, you literally you are wiping the floor with your clothes, and that's not something actually not something good. You need to be more hygiene, more clean. Your clothes has to be, because you should be an example for others. So I am with that on a favor of having it above the ankle, which is recommended as the Prophet has said. But I don't go with the opinion that it is an obligation or it is haram. Sorry, it's haram to be below the ankle, just clear cut haram. Because but I only just say if it's with the pride, then yes, it is haram.
Okay, this is quite profound what the Sheikh just said. It's like if it's out of pride. And one thing I want to keep, because this is a reminder that I watched, I can't remember where. Basically, what they were saying is, if you put your trousers below your ankle out of pride, it's a sin.
Yeah.
However, let's keep this in mind. This is very profound. When I heard this, I was like, wow, that's so fun. It's like, if you put your trousers above your ankle, out of pride, you also fall for that. Did you get it, Sheikh?
Yeah, true. Actually, some people, they will look down to the others, and thinking the others they are better than them, and that's why when you want to advise, you need to advise that you want to. If you think if you follow this opinion, for example, and I have no issues with the people who follows that, but you need to not to look down on the people who follows. Maybe that person is jahil, is ignorant. So you need to educate him. You need to teach him. So don't think yourself that if Allah has favored you with some knowledge, that doesn't mean you are better than him. That person has something between him and Allah Azza wa Jal, maybe better than you. The other thing as well, maybe he did ijtihad, he checked and then he followed that opinion. So don't think that you are better than him because you think yourself you are having, for example, you have more knowledge than him, or you think you have more pious in your heart, and that's something it could attack. This is more dangerous than the other ones, because when you think yourself that you are better than others, we have the worst example, that there is some narration, even though there is issues with the narration, but anyway the idea of it, even though it's kind of biography, it's kind of the seerah about the Prophet ﷺ, that when Dhul Khuwaisara came into the masjid while the Prophet was sitting with his companion, so look at this, he came in, and he looked at the Prophet ﷺ and the companion, then he said somewhere, then the Prophet called him and he said to him, I ask you by Allah, when you entered this masjid, you didn't think in your heart that you are the best person who is entering the masjid? He said yes, which means he thinks himself he's better than the Prophet ﷺ.
Wow.
In a way or another. So the people, they think, you don't look down on other people. You don't know some other people. Subhanallah. I mean, when you deal with people more, and you will see, You'll see some people, they have some secrets between them and Allah Azza wa Jal, and no one knows them except Allah. And those secrets, Allah Azza wa Jal will raise them up.
Yeah.
And you yourself, with your arrogance, with your pride, Allah Azza wa Jal maybe will humiliate you.
It's a trait of shaitan, arrogance, thinking you are better. What was the first thing, one first thing that happened? He said, I'm better than Adam, alayhi salam. So you're sharing the attribute of
arrogance.
with you,
True.
arrogance with yourself. And what I was saying is, like the Sheikh said as well, the matter here is pride. So if you have your trousers above your ankle, and you are going to somebody and advising them and saying, why you don't have your trousers, and you're doing it with pride, you are actually falling for the hadith more than the person you're trying to, because maybe he's doing it out of arrogance, ignorance, maybe he doesn't even know. So you are actually falling for the hadith that you're advising the person about.
And there are more important things to start with as well. For example, nowadays time, we should concentrate. If all our calls was calling for Tawheed, and it's not enough, our lifetime is not enough just to concentrate on that.
Exactly.
The other thing which is to call to Tawheed, to call them to Sunnah, to practice the Sunnah. For example, if a teacher, someone who wanted to teach other people, if you bring the people to the Sunnah and love the Sunnah of the Prophet and follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, you will find them directly. They will find them. Directly they will go into following the commandments of the Prophet ﷺ. So that's why instead, like for example, to talk about these things initially, even though if you think it's important, I'm not saying it's not important, but I will say there is a priority. To bring the people to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, this is the priority. When the people understand the Quran and the Sunnah, the consequence of that, you will find them applying the Quran and the Sunnah. And that's the idea. You need to bring them first to the concept of following the Quran, following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ first, and after that, it will be the consequence of that. You will find them easily will practice the good deeds in Islam.
Yeah, of course. And priority is important. Like Muad ibn Jabal. When the Prophet ﷺ sent him to Yemen? Yeah, so there was priority. So let's be, if you're going and talking to somebody about, let's say he's wearing an earring. If he doesn't know about Tawheed and Salah, if you go to him and talk to him about his earring, yes, it is important, we should, but let's talk about priorities first. The Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, the Salah, etc. Then we can, after the brothers establishing that, then you can gently say, about brother, the earring, etc. It's priorities. Sometimes in today's time, we have people going and picking on what color socks the brother wears, and they don't even ask the brother subhanAllah, like, Salah, Tawheed, nothing to do with, we should have a priority straight, inshallah.
Yeah, true.
Okay, Sheikh, we have one question. Cutting the beard. Let's go for this one. Cutting the beard, Sheikh. Are we allowed to cut the beard? When I mean cut, I'm not talking about fully, What's the length that they could grow?
Okay, basically, we have shaving the beard is haram. That's something which is agreed by the scholars.
Okay, so what's the minimum and what's the maximum now?
Okay, now what's the minimum? The minimum is that the beard should be thick, the thickness of the beard. Now, some scholars, they said the thickness is just like the action of the Sahabah, which is one fist. Some scholars, they said this, which they follow the narration of Abdullah bin Umar, and others that Abdullah bin Umar, he was cutting his, which is below his fist. He was just holding the beard and he was cutting below it. And as well narrated by Abu Hurairah. Those are the two people who narrated the hadith of leaving the beard, which means growing the beard. Now, some scholars, they said just leave it without touching it. And that's, we'll find a lot of scholars who are on that opinion. Now, since we have few saying of the scholars, now some of them, they said, is the limit is just what Abdullah bin Abdullah bin Umar and Abu Hurairah, this is the only limit or not? This is the question which we need to ask ourselves. Is it that's the limit or not? We find as well some narration from the tabi'een, the Salaf, who used to say, we used to see the companion cutting from the beards, from the length and from the width. They were not so. Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, rahimahullah, he was saying that we saw people from the Sahaba, they were cutting from their beard, from the length and from the width, and they were not seeing any harm in that. So what is the limit? The limit, the thickness. That's the limit. So the beard has to be thick. And so some scholars, they said even has to be combed, something which is like there should be hair.
It can be combed.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be you shouldn't see the skin through it.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it has to be combed. As some of them, they have to be thick. When you do the wudu, you have to do the takhleel. You have to put your fingers through the beard to make sure that the water goes through. Some scholars, they said this is at least the minimum of the beard. That's how it should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes for till the break.
Yes.
I'm trying to get them short ones. When should kids start to pray? When should the parents encourage the kids to start praying?
They should encourage them as soon as they start understanding the Quran and understanding the action of the Salah. So, Subhanallah, from Allah's, from Allah's, you could say,
Wisdom.
decision in His creation, yeah, and from the natural disposition of the people, that the people, the weak will follow the strong one generally.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll find when the Ummah, when the Muslims, they were strong. You will find all the other nations, they were just copying Muslims in their behaviors, in their cleaning, in their, and all these things.
We have people
Now it's the other way around. Now the Muslims, they were weak, they're copying the West and thinking for example, copying the Western in their clothing and everything, whatever they are, then that's what they do. Now similarly, the child, they will follow, they will copy the parents. So as soon as the child, when he see the parents praying, they will just copy them, even though they don't know what's going on, but they will just try to copy them.
Subconscious.
Yeah, that's how is it. So as soon as that, you should encourage our children to do it and to continue that. When he start picking up the words, for example, he start, teach them Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, start teaching them the Fatiha. Until they reach the age they are able to recite Fatiha, then in that case, you give them more, you teach them.
Okay.
So by the age of 7, it will be compulsory upon the parents to teach them. Like it will be before 7, it could be recommended.
So
But after the age of 7, it will be compulsory upon the parents to teach them, the Salah, how the action of the Salah, and they have time until the age of 10.
Okay, so around 7 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, brothers and sisters, we're going to come straight after the break, inshallah. Don't go nowhere. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters, dear friends. Welcome back to Ask the Iman. Hope you guys are doing well, inshallah. Okay, Sheikh, we've got more questions.
Yep.
One of the questions is, I have sisters and brothers who don't keep family ties with me, but only invite me since it's the holy month. Do I have to go, and how to deal with this?
Yeah, they only invite him during just the month of Ramadan?
Yeah, besides Ramadan, they don't want to know that person. But during Ramadan, they invite.
But does he do the same thing to them? Does he invite them only in Ramadan? What about the other month? So the question is to him.
Okay.
So
it seems like maybe she or he wants to go, but they just invite her in Ramadan.
Okay. I will say to him or her, the brother or that sister, that they should be, or he should be the one, or she should be the one who's inviting them throughout the year. So they should lead by example. Like, for example, his mother, of course, his mother, even if your mother, you have to, it's very strange. I mean, someone whose his mother is close by and that person doesn't visit the mother on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, subhanAllah. That's something, it's something, I mean, I don't know, it's very strange here. So it should be that there should be, even though if your mother kick you out, go and stand by the door, even though why we have this arrogance and pride in our heart, where our mother and our mothers, who I mean, we know how much they suffer to give birth to us, to look after us when we were young. So whatever they do, we should always be in contact with them. Even though if they are not good to us, we should go back, we should be the one who's good to them. Because we cannot pay them back what they have done to us, that generally. Now the sister, the same thing. If you have a sister or something, you deal with them, try to visit them, try to be in contact with them. Because one Sahabi, he said to the brother, he said, I try to connect them. One Sahabi, he said to the Prophet, he said, some of my relatives, I try to connect them and they try to disconnect me. He said, the Prophet, he just like, when you do this, you're just like throwing the dust or the ash in their faces, which means you should just continue what you do. You just carry on what you do. The Prophet, he didn't tell him, no, you just finish. You continue what you do and try to connect them yourself. Don't wait until them. You should invite them several times, 100 times. If they don't like your house, invite them somewhere else. So try to do that. For example, some sisters who are married to a brother or to someone, maybe their mothers, they don't like the husband or something like that. So invite them somewhere else. You take them to a restaurant. Be the one who's trying to connect them. Take food, make food, and take it for them. Be the one who's.
It is a big sin, Sheikh, right? For those who break ties with their family.
Yeah, it's a big sin in Islam. It's a big sin in Islam. It's not something which is small. You're dealing with a great sin in Islam.
And let alone doing it to your parents, doing it to your mom and dad. And one thing we should understand, brothers and sisters, is that we need to understand the concept of and we can maybe go into the Sheikh, what's for the sake of Allah. When we love each other for the sake of Allah, what do we understand from this? A lot of people say, I love you for the sake of Allah. But did you even understand what you said? Because what's really important is when you love someone for the sake of Allah, you are doing that action, not what he's going to do back, but you're basically doing it because this is for Allah. So this is something maybe we can elaborate on, Sheikh. The importance, because some people think, I do it, or I did this for you, but you didn't do it back. Then how are you doing it for the sake of Allah when you're expecting a return?
And that's the same thing dealing with the parents, dealing with the brothers, dealing with the relatives. When you do it for the sake of Allah, you don't wait. We don't wait the response from them. You don't wait, for example, someone, he said, I visited my father twice and he never called me, he never did that. I said, you keep visiting him, you keep going back to him, you keep asking about him. You do that because you're doing it for the sake of Allah. When the Prophet ﷺ, that man, when he came to him, he said about his mother, he said, you know where is her feet? He said, yes. He said, then the Jannah is there, which means the Jannah is close to the feet of the mother. It's not under what the hadith they said. That's weak, but it says the strong hadith that the Jannah is close to the feet of the mother. It means that you need to look after her. You need to be the one close to her. You need to be the one who is respecting her. That's how is it. This is what it means. And that's why you shouldn't wait until the mother do something to you or the father did something to you. No, you should be the one who's doing the good deeds to them. And as well, your brothers or sisters, the same thing. You should be good to them. Now, there are some cases only that if you think that could influence your iman or something like that, then in that case you need to deal with them in kind of restricted way. For example, your parents are non-Muslim or something like that, which is some cases. And if you go there, that could affect your iman. Try to visit them not as constant as as other people, but as well you need to visit them. You need to, from time to time, change the environment. Instead of go to their house, invite them to your house. do something which is change, you could say, the situation and dealing with them to the better way, inshallah.
Barakallahu feek, Shaykh. What about, for example, in these rare cases, sometimes if the family member has left the fold of Islam, kinship here.
Yeah.
So they say somebody's asked, saying, "Can I go and still visit and talk to her?"
Yeah, you could go and maybe advise them and bring them back to Islam. I mean, you shouldn't know, unless if it influences you. If it influences you, then that's it. You can't do more than that.
So you need to weigh it up, you know, because either you're giving them da'wah,
or they give you da'wah. So and that's how is it. The people are two types. Either a type which give da'wah or a type giving da'wah. That's how is it. Receiving da'wah. So you need to be the one, if you correct them, you need to make sure that you have have some strength and knowledge to give da'wah to them in order to bring them back to the guidance of Islam.
So, to be honest, from my experience with this matter, it's these things with the youth specifically, is be patient. Most of the times it's actually emotional reasons why they leave Islam. When we have discussion with these brothers and sisters and say, look, what was the reason? It's never to do with, the Quran, Allah. It's never to do with something wrong with the religion. It's more based on emotions or things that's happened in their life. So that's why you need to understand the fact that they've claimed they've left, and based on that shows to you that there was nothing wrong with the religion. It's just emotional. So basically you shouldn't make it worse for them by pushing them further away. You should make them understand. And if they have questions, get them answered. If you can't, Allah says in the Quran, if you don't know something, ask somebody that knows. Go to somebody that knows and get these questions answered instead of just pushing them away, and pushing them further. Or
alternatively, I find some good ways as well, especially with dealing with parents, because many of the parents they don't like advice from the children. Generally, what we have, especially the cultural, that's the cultural habits. Just like a brother who was saying, he said, the egg doesn't teach a chicken. That's what they say. So the same thing. So some parents they don't expect from their children to advise them. It happens. We're talking about the real life yet. So what the people they should do? Actually, there is a way around it. And instead of you the one who's advising, find a friend of them. For example, I know someone who was advising his father through his friend. He himself is knowledgeable, but he couldn't advise his father. He himself was knowledgeable. And he is knowledgeable, but he couldn't advise the father because the father is still the father. So what he did, he went to the friend of the father, and then spoke to him, and then told him, please, my father is doing such and such, which is something. I'm smoking cigarettes and other. So he was saying, I don't want my father, to make this sin, for example. Then the friend of the father, so he was advising his friend. His friend quit cigarettes, and the friend of the father quit cigarettes, and start advising his friend, which is the father of the person. Alhamdulillah, until the father, Allah guided him and left cigarettes. So the idea, there's ways you could do different ways, not necessarily by personally that you need to do. You need to show, and many people you need as well to check your heart. You wish that your father that you want to guide him because you think you are more guided than him. These things you need to check your heart.
That's really true.
So that's why if the idea you wanted your father to be guided, not necessarily through you, but try to make it happen through someone else. So at least at the end of the day, you are looking for your father to follow the truth and all this.
Because there's more than one way of doing certain things, and do try, like the Sheikh said. There's other methods of doing it, and if you're sincere and you really love your father and you want to do it, advise them. Then you would do it the right way. You wouldn't, because some kids might want to be like, I know better. This happens. You read a couple of books and you're the ulama.
Many of them we find many cases like that. You'll find them who will say, I have knowledge. My parents they are like cultural, all these things. Subhanallah. I mean, you start criticizing them. And that's why we said, instead of that, you should be proud, at least those ones who looked after you when you were young. They made you to learn Islam and all these things. So you should appreciate what they have done to you.
You might have the knowledge, but hikmah is very important.
But you don't have the hikmah.
That's very important,
And the dua as well. The dua is important. If you think your parents they have something wrong or something, the dua. I mean, why we leave the dua? Make the dua. And wallahi, many people, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, they came back to the guidance of Islam through the dua of their relatives, their brothers, their sisters, their children. The dua.
Dua is really important. We should make that a priority. We shouldn't say, let me do A, B, C, D, then I'll do dua. No, dua should be right on the top. However, we have a caller. Let's go to the caller straight away, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, caller.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing, Aki? Where are you calling from and your name, please?
Yes, my name is Azhar Sayyed. I'm calling from Manchester.
Manchester, mashallah. How's the weather there, Aki?
Yes, weather is fine. It's fairly warm here.
Yeah, it's quite warm here as well, mashallah.
Right. My question to Sheikh is, I'm trying to understand that tonight is the 15th of Shaban, and I'm trying to find out if Sheikh could explain what is the meaning of the night of Barra, and what sort of acts Muslims should perform and or devote themselves for this night.
The night of what?
And possibly the next day as well.
Barra.
The night of what?
Okay, Jazakumullah.
Okay, brother, what did you say? The night of?
Night of Barra.
Barra?
This is what you call the
middle night of Shaban.
Mubarak. You know, in the Surah Dakhan it is mentioned.
Okay, khair.
Okay, Barakallah feek. Thank you.
Jazakumullah.
Regarding the night of Shaban, there is no narration in the Quran or in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that there is a special act of prayer or special act of worship that should be done in it.
Okay.
So I encourage the brothers and sisters to do the normal days as they were doing it, this normally. But during this night, that Allah will be looking into all His creation, and He will forgive all of them except 2 times, as we said before. The one who associates with Allah partner, mushrik, or someone who has dispute between him and his brother. So that's why try to make, if you have any problem with your brother in Islam or your sister in Islam, something like that, try to make it up during or before the night comes. That's the best thing. And ask Allah forgiveness. And as well, some scholars, they said fasting the day of the 15th. There is nothing mentioned fasting the day 15th. But if it's, for example, like Thursdays and some other days, people are entitled to fast it. Other than that, there is no special things that needed to do. The dua, is there Qiyam al-Layl? There is no Qiyam al-Layl. Some masajid, subhanAllah, they open, they do Qiyam al-Layl or something like that. It's not mentioned in the Sunnah to do it. And we don't have a hadith to support that there is certain action of worship that we need to do it in the middle of Shaban. There is nothing except the normal things, and we always ask Allah the forgiveness, and always ask Allah to accept your deeds. That generally throughout the year. That's all.
Okay. So basically, they should ask for reconciliation between the 2 parties.
Yeah.
Is this like is there any hadith supporting it? Like, you know, like, is it in Ramadan?
No, before Ramadan, the 15th of Shaban.
15th of Shaban.
Allah will look into all His creation, and He will forgive everyone except 2 types.
Yeah.
Someone who associates with Allah partner, kafir, disbeliever, or someone who has dispute between him and his brother in Islam.
Okay.
We're not talking about dispute on akhirah matter. We're talking about dispute of dunya matter. Something you happen between you and your brother. So make it up before the night.
So what if it's akhirah matter?
If it's akhirah matter, then depends. Does it affect or it doesn't affect? For example, if you boycott someone, does it affect him? Does it make him rectify or not? If it doesn't make him rectify, then there is no point to do it.
Okay. So you
shouldn't have dispute, for example. Unless if someone who's an innovator or something like that, someone who did like something serious in Islam, then in that case, you do want to influence yourself. You don't want him to influence you. That case, that's a different matter. We're talking about someone who, for example, you have a dispute between you and a brother. For example, he did something and you think he is wrong and he think he's right and all this thing, and you have dispute and he says, I'm going to boycott you. So what's the point? Is he going to stop it? He's not going to stop it. So the best thing to keep that in touch with him, at least you will be advising him from time to time. That's one way. Unless if you think that he went to serious matter, then in that case, you just, if you want to leave him, you stay away from him, but not like as a boycotting or something like that, just stay away.
Okay, just quickly coming back on what you said, Sheikh, about advising parents. One of my teachers, they told me before that the way he advised, because he would see his mom maybe backbiting sometimes. So he said the way he did it, he would, every time he would pick her up to take her somewhere, he would put a lecture about backbiting.
Yeah, that's good. That's good way. That's good way. Wallah, that's good. Jazakallah khair. May Allah reward him, this brother. I mean, that's a good way as well to give, for example, to give indirect dawah to the parents. That's good. Jazakallah khair. Allah reward him, and that's a great thing as well.
MashaAllah. Okay, Sheikh. Let's talk about Sunnah fast, because Ramadan's coming up. There might be a lot of people who have missed maybe 5 days, 10 days, 20 days, maybe, I don't know, their fasts.
Yeah.
So now we know the scholars usually say you should do, if those the ones that you missed last Ramadan, that's your priority, meaning that you should not do no Sunnah fast until you've got them out of the way.
Yes.
You know. So what do you what's the ruling on this? What's your advice?
Jazakallah khair. First of all, we need to understand why they have lived all this year and they didn't make up their days until today.
Yes.
There's a question. You should be concerned. I mean, what about if Allah took your soul during this year? You don't know that. Then even in some, according to many of the scholars, they used to say, if someone didn't make it up, then the one who's the wali, which means the one who's responsible, his children, his son, or something like that, will inherit the fasting that the one who didn't do it.
Yeah.
So it is something important for the one who didn't fast.
Okay.
Do not delay it until Shaban, unless if there is something which is something held you back for not doing so. We have our mother Aisha radiallahu anha. She said that she was busy radiallahu. Of course, when she has the Prophet her husband and the revelation and all these things and dealing with people and all these things, she will be very busy radiallahu anha warda. So we cannot give her example, but in case, just let's say that's for argument's sake. So she was sometimes not fasting the days that she missed during Ramadan. So she was postponing it until Shaban. And she was fasting Shaban. And we said she was fasting them before Shaban, before the Ramadan. Even if there is a few days left to Ramadan, you need to make up the days that you missed from last year. So it's important for you to make it up because it's an obligation. And you shouldn't leave another Ramadan to come in before you make up the days before.
Yes.
That's one thing. That's why one of the points of fasting, or the Prophet he encourages us to fast the month of Shaban. It has many good points. One of them, you prepare for Ramadan. The other thing as well, you will be, as well, for example, that it is sunnah, just like there is for every obligation, there is sunnah before and sunnah after, for example. Like the fardh prayer, there's sunnah and after, sunnah before and sunnah after. Same thing, Ramadan. There is sunnah before and sunnah after. The month of Shaban is just like the sunnah before, to fast some days during the month of Shaban. The last thing, which is the Prophet ﷺ, that his wives, during this month, they will make up their days, the one they missed in Ramadan. So he was helping them in fasting with them. For example, if the husband is not fasting and the wife is fasting, then it might be difficult for her, to fast alone, and especially maybe if the husband, he needs, for example, that he wants his wife, for example, or she makes food for him and other things, so it will be difficult for her. So he will cooperate with her by fasting with her during the month of Shaban to make up the days that she missed. So that's why, and this is as well, again, that's what the relation of Aisha radiallahu anha. We know that as well, that the person is entitled to postpone the obligation one, and to do the days which is recommended. For example, some scholars, they said you cannot fast the 6 days of Shawwal after Ramadan until you make up the days. But actually, the saying of Aisha, this is against it, which means the person is entitled to fast the sunnah ones, and you have the time to do the obligation ones. You could do it later on.
So let's say somebody owes 5 days to make up, and if they don't make it up before this Ramadan, can they make it up after this Ramadan, or is that gone?
No, they have to make it up. It's not gone. But he's sinful for delaying it after Ramadan.
For not doing it before the Ramadan.
For not doing it before Ramadan, he's sinful for not doing so. So he has to do it within 1 year. So you have 1 year to make it up.
What if he's forgotten how many he missed?
So he need to check the clarity. For example, he need to know, did he miss all Ramadan, or did he miss half Ramadan, or 10 days? Then he need to judge what is the maximum, not the minimum. For example, he doubt, did I miss 7 days or 6 days? No, say 7 days, because you don't know. Yeah?
So it's better just add extra.
Not add extra from your own. For example, you think, for example, that Ramadan, was it 7 days I missed or 6 days? For example, I was a traveler, for example. I traveled for 6 days or 8 days, I forget. Yeah? Then if you can't give any clue, then you take what is, that means it's 7 days. Yeah, because they are the most likely to be 7 days rather than to be 6 days. But you don't say there are 6 days, but you add another 7th one.
Okay.
Barakallah.
Okay, let's see. We've got some more questions here. Assalamu alaikum. Is there any authentic about 15 Shaban, Nisfu Shaban?
Nisfu Shaban, yeah.
Yeah. Did we cover that?
We covered that. We said about it. There is nothing.
Okay. Okay, let's go to this one. Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. Was he a good person or a bad person? That's what they asked.
Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we respect the companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but we know his status is not like as the status of the other companion. we know his status is below the other great companion like Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali. So his status is below them in terms of companionship. And as we know that the Sahaba, all of them, we know them, that we respect them, we love them for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we deal with them according to the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "La tasubbu ashabi." He said, do not swear at my companion. Do not say bad things about them, because he said, if anyone amongst you spend just like the mountain of Uhud, gold or silver, he will be not spending as a one fist full of something of one of them, which means that the companion, their effort in the early stage of Islam is more important than we do it in the late stage of Islam. So that's one thing. As well, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, there are a few things about him as well. He was one of the writer of the Wahy, one of the writer of the Quran as well. The people, one of the Sahaba used to write the Quran for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he was writing the letters for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet, he trusted him that he was writing the letters to the kings, to the other leaders, and he trusted him to write the Wahy, the Quran, the revelation. So he was writing the revelation. And as well, he is the brother of al-Mu'mineen, Ramla bint Abi Sufyan, Habib, Ramla bint Abi Sufyan, radiyallahu anha. He is her brother. So that's why some scholars, they used to call him Khalid. He's the uncle of the believers in terms of that, of his status. And as well, he was the first king in Islam. As the Prophet, he said that they're gonna be kingship after the Khilafah. So all these things about Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, was a great companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we should always think good in the companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And regarding, did he make mistakes? Who doesn't make mistakes except the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Everyone makes mistakes. We claim that the Sahaba, they are trustworthy, but we don't claim that they are immune from the sins. They make sins and they make mistakes, but that doesn't mean their mistakes will overweight their iman, because Allah Azza wa Jalla has promised those ones who believed in Allah Azza wa Jalla and in the day of resurrection amongst the Sahaba, Allah promised them Jannah. So we should always think good in them.
Yes. Okay, Sheikh, Barakallahu Feek. Can we, going to go to a caller, inshallah. Let's answer the caller. Assalamu alaikum, caller.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How you doing, Aki?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Yeah, good, alhamdulillah. Where are you calling from, Aki, and your name?
London, Rimwan.
What's your name?
Rimwan.
Oh, Brother Rimwan, how you doing?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Yes, please answer give us your question.
Just to put my mind at ease, Sheikh, a scenario. Just say you're at work, and a dog licks you, right? So now you're najis, right? So you can't go home.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you pray Salah, is that okay?
Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah Feek, Brother Ramon. May Allah bless you.
Cool. You too.
Take care. I'll see you soon. Sheikh, so
the question, what brings the dogs inside the work? That's good.
Again, the real question is, what's the dog doing in the workplace?
It could happen. There is one incident I saw. There is a blind lady. She had a dog which brings her to the office. So it could be. There could be something like that.
So
but those type of dogs, they don't lick. They are very.
They're very disciplined.
Very disciplined.
Yeah.
Now, if this incident that happened and you're going to work, something, maybe a dog licked you or something like that, Allah said in the Quran, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ, which means we should fear Allah as much as we could. How is it? We go to the toilet, for example, we wash the place where he licked, for example, from the cloth, and that's it. And you pray.
How many times? Because we know when
just
a dog,
once.
But there's no narration where it says if a dog lick a bowl, you have to wash it 7
times. A bowl,
times.
that's the bowl, not the clothes. This is ruling for the bowl.
Okay, that's not.
So we don't mix and match. We just this is a bowl. Is a bowl.
Is it because it's a different item, or it's just because?
No, because the bowl is for eating and drinking. That's why it's more hygiene. Because the soil has kind of chemicals which kills the virus and other things. Plus 6 times with water, inshallah, it will be good. That's how it is. So it's kind of hygiene for the. But can it be replaced with something? For example, nowadays these bowls, can we use some kind of liquids? Yes, we could, because the cleaning and purification of the items and the cloth is not act of worship by itself. It is not. We shouldn't follow how it should be. It is something which is just for the hygiene rather than to be as itself as act of worship. But the purification of one's person, of oneself, says of course it is act of worship. Now these bowls, if there is any liquid or something which clean it, then alhamdulillah it will be done. You don't need it's sufficient. Even though if there is no liquids or something like that to clean it, then that's how it should be. It should be done in one case. Even some scholars, they said, even though if there is in a situation, for example, even if you have these things, why not to do it? So you could do it as well. You are entitled to do it, for example, one with soil and 6 times. This is for the bowl. For the clothes, is sufficient. The water is sufficient.
What's sufficient?
Water is sufficient, inshallah. Water or liquid. But if you are in a position, as the brother is in the scenario, you go to the toilet, clean the place of it.
Okay.
If you can't do it, then you pray. You fear Allah as much as you can.
Sheikh, we've got about 2 minutes, so let's get this question. Assalamu alaikum. I asked a question in the comments. I'm a revert graduate in theology and religious education. I asked a question regarding the placement of the arms during Salah for women. Many in my masjid pray with the arms flat and on the floor. And as far as I am aware, that you shouldn't. And some brothers do this as well. When they pray, they put their elbow full flat.
Yeah.
It's not like this. Is this permissible?
No, it's not permissible. The Prophet he said, do not prostrate or like the dog. The dog is like that. So the Prophet he prohibited to make your arms flat on the floor. Now, where the women like the men in terms of the Salah. There is no difference between the Salah, the prayer of the women and the prayer of the men. There are some scholars who distinguish between them, but actually there is no proof to distinguish between them. And that's why we say where the men, they should be, for example, placing the hand or the right hand on top of the left hand on the chest. So that's how is it in the normal Salah for men and women. For ruku', for sujood, the same, and the same thing for sujood, and as well placing the hands rather than the whole arm, just only the hand.
Okay, we have a minute left, Sheikh. Let me just ask you something quickly, inshallah.
Yeah.
Does it invalidate their Salah?
No, it doesn't invalidate the Salah, but they are sinful for doing so.
So should they do two?
No, they are sinful for doing it. That's why they shouldn't do it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, they're just sinful.
Yeah, that's why. If they know, if they don't know, then we correct them. We teach them.
If
they know, they are sinful. If they know, if they don't know, then that's they don't know.
Okay.
Allah will not. Allah will not.
Should we say the sister can just go advise them?
Yeah, advise them in a good way.
Okay.
Yeah, and tell them that the hands has to be like that.
Okay. Barakallahu feek, Sheikh. May Allah bless you, inshallah. Thanks for coming and joining us. It was a pleasure. It's always nice seeing you here, Sheikh. What we're going to do, brothers and sisters, is this episode is finishing, as you guys know. Inshallah, keep tuned in, inshallah, till next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.